Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 183. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel.
Hello, everyone. How you all doing today? How you doing today, Mike?
I'm chilling, brother. Yourself?
I am well.
All right. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you get all of our alerts when we go live and when we send out messages. And we'll get started. Oh, shoot. All right, bear with me 1 second as I get the docket up. Got to put the docket in.
Hello, all. How you all doing today? How you doing today, Complex? See, we got 14 likes already. 7 watching. People are rolling in. Don't forget to press the like button as you come in. We really appreciate it. Um, like that, we have 14 likes already. That's pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
I think people are just standing by, waiting for that Mueller report.
Yeah, that's uh, that's gonna be interesting. How you doing today, reigning woman? Sam C.
Hey, what's going on, Sam C? Let us know if you want to get on the panel Friday for economics, man. I remember that you came through before. So, reigning woman, what's going on?
How you doing, Sean C?
All right, let me just get this last one in here.
All right. How you doing, Marcus Allen?
Yeah, we'll get to that, Sam C. We'll get to that.
How you doing, Nate? How you doing, Samuel Love? All right.
All right, let's get started. All right, this one is from first one on the docket is from Haiti Libre. Haiti security prime minister promises to fight against urban guerrillas. On Tuesday, after tabling his documents in the Chamber of Deputies, acting Prime Minister Jean Michel Le Pen declared on sporadic shotguns of automatic weapons from LA La Saline, be aware of the situation of insecurity in the country. Asked by journalists about the daily gunfire that forces the population to stay at home, especially in the suburbs of the capital, but also in the provinces, the head of government replied, "We are part of the population. All buildings in the area are affected by these bandits, so we are aware. The country has developed since 1986 a form of banditry that has evolved to put the state today in front of armed guerrillas, affirming that several measures will be taken following a special meeting of the High Council of the National Police, CSPN. that morning without any further details because of the national security on these measures and the time when they will be applied to put an end to these armed gangs that terrorize the Haitian population. This is interesting because Haiti doesn't manufacture guns, and one of the things about Haiti is that it's an island. So in order for guns to actually proliferate on the island, somebody has to actually bring them there. Haitians don't even have enough money for basic necessities, but guns are floating about. So you have to ask the question, Q Bono, who benefits from this? Who's bringing the guns in? You have anything to add to this, Lionel?
Yeah, that's tantamount to, but much on a much grander scale. Stories here in Chicago, how these guys would find boxes of guns left in the alley in the neighborhood, someone dropping them off. But with Haiti, it's on a much grander scale because these guns cost hundreds of dollars, and now you have these people with guns. I understand you want to overthrow the government, but not overthrow the government, but um, change the person that's in the government right now. But they know that's not the way to go because they know that Haiti has been occupied by um,
What's this?
NATO and not NATO. I forgot the name.
United Nations.
Yeah, United Nations,
United Nations.
and other foreign entities. And they know if they do that, then that will be the answer. So they're not stupid, but I agree. Who benefits of a Haiti that is in a catastrophe, in that's burning up? Who benefits from a Haiti burning? And that's the if you get your list of possible benefactors, then you break down from there who benefits the most. Even if they benefit least, it could be a partnership, of a mutual beneficial partnership of whoever may benefit. But that doesn't make sense especially if the styles of guns are assault rifles, assault weapons. These are $1,000 guns, thousands of dollar guns. So yeah. Hey, how you doing, DE?
All right,
Yeah,
Lena,
you're
how you
right
doing,
about
Mike?
what's going on, brother. You have anything you want to add to about this Haiti issue?
Um, Revolutions are never clean and smooth, and you know, and always somebody's benefit. Serious. Normally, is the wealthy. In every revolution, it is the wealthy who benefits. Even if the poor come to power, the wealthy still keep their wealth, keep their lands or whatever it is. It depends on if they back the person in power. If you have wealth in the country and you back the person in power, that person is going to stay in power with your help, and you're going to benefit. So even if the government in Haiti gets taken down and they put somebody who is more um, um, amicable towards the poor class of people, the wealthy are still going to benefit. The people who brought the guns in are still going to benefit, and that's what they intend to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that there are some power grabs going on in the Caribbean right now. The Chinese are all over Haiti right now, and they've been there for quite a few years. Um, Venezuela has a strong presence inside Haiti. Ecuador also has a very strong presence in Haiti as well, um, because these are all business operations, but they still have a strong presence there. The United States has the biggest embassy in the West, just as big as the White House, sitting inside Haiti. So there's a lot of there's a lot of players involved in this game right now, and destabilization would make sense if Haiti was a superpower, but Haiti is not a superpower. So I'm kind of curious, what's the benefit of keeping it unstable? Because Haiti doesn't really, they're not a G20 member. So destabilizing them doesn't really, break them from the, break them from the ranks of the other um, allied superpowers such as Russia and China and India and so on and so forth. They're not sitting at the G20 table. So I'm curious to know more about this as it goes on. So.
Haiti is in the same category as I would say Venezuela because they had ability, they have the resources. If they were let alone, even Cuba has the resources that they can. Um, if they were left alone, they will be able to survive without um, dependency. But that's what happens to every nation. Look at Libya. Look at Libya is a prime example. Not that they weren't corrupt, there wasn't corruption, but the people are only now seeing what they gave up. Now that they've got something far worse than what they had,
Mhm.
you know. So Haiti, if Haiti were allowed to stand, um, it would be one like leading between Haiti and Guyana would be the leaders in the Caribbean community. That's my opinion because they both countries has the ability, the wealth actually, that if they were allowed to develop it, would be independent.
Mhm. So you say wealth, you're speaking of resources, natural resources.
Yeah, not only natural resources, but the people. The Haitians are not really lazy people. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, they are not. They've been beaten down. Even in a beaten down position, they still fight and survive. No matter how they just survive. You know what I'm saying? So
All right, let me get to this next article. This next one is from the Washington Examiner.com. Mexican troops disarmed American soldiers on U.S. side of the border. Armed Mexican troops disarmed two United States soldiers while they were on the American side of the border, U.S. defense officials have said. U.S. Northern Command said in a statement that 5 to 6 Mexican military personnel questioned two U.S. Army soldiers who were conducting border support operations this month. The U.S. soldiers were in an unmarked Customs and Border Protection vehicle near the southwest border near Clint, Texas. Officials confirmed that the Mexican troops were armed with what seemed to be rifles. They raised their weapons when they saw the two U.S. Soldiers, and then took a pistol from one in an attempt to de-escalate a potential volatile situation. Quote, throughout the incident, the U.S. soldiers followed all established procedures and protocols, the statement said. The two U.S. troops were on the south side of the security perimeter, but north of Rio Grande, and thus were in the U.S. according side American territory. Pentagon and the Department of Homeland Security officials demanded an explanation from the Mexican government. An inquiry by CBP and DoD, Department of Defense, revealed that the Mexican military members believed that the U.S. Army soldiers were south of the border, the statement said. Though they were south of the border fence, U.S. soldiers remain in U.S. territory north of the actual border. Can anybody hear me?
No, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you, Mike.
Oh, really?
Oh, now I am. Yeah, I'm now.
Okay. I lost connection there for a second. To give you a backstory, last week there was some militia, white militia members, who basically have kidnapped uh, migrants at the border. So Mexican troops coming to the border are coming to the defense of the migrants, in all actuality, and you have these, you have this U.S. military in an unmarked vehicle rolling around. You know, if you're the Mexican military, if you're the Mexican government, you're probably looking at this and you're saying, "I can right now."
Yeah, I'm hearing you now. But you were out for about 10 seconds.
Okay. Well, what's the last thing that you heard?
You mentioned that the militia was kidnapping Mexicans.
Right. So the white militias in the South were actually kidnapping the migrants as they came across the border. We don't know if they were Mexican or what, Guatemalan or anything like that. So now I think the Mexican government, the Mexican military is probably saying we need to take further action. Um, Regardless of who's pulling the strings in the back, somebody is pushing that button and saying, um, send these guys out there. Mexican military goes out there and sees these two um, CBP guys, or not CBP, but two U.S. military guys in an unmarked vehicle. They all look alike, one pale face from another. They all look alike, right? So it's not uncommon that something like this would happen. This could have been worse, you know. They could have gotten, imagine if the Mexican military got into a shootout with white militias. You know how much of a diplomatic catastrophe that would be on the United States. That would give Mexico a whole lot of leverage in Latin America, and that would rally a whole lot of Latin American countries to get rid of Guaido and get behind the Mexican government.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, that that could have been a situation that really could have went left real fast if one person could have would have pulled the trigger, and it just would have been a ripple effect. But these instances may continue to escalate on that border.
Oh yeah, definitely it is, and on the Latin American side, they're going to play it to their advantage, um, especially with all this, especially with everything that's happening in Latin America with U.S. troops and um, yeah, with all the U.S. Troops, landing in Venezuela and all these overthrowing of governments and possibly Bolivia next few months. Um, whole lot of a whole lot of solidarity can come out of this. So we'll see what happens. Let me get to this next article. All right, this next one is from the MoscowTimes.com. Russia says it will help Venezuela, Cuba to weather U.S. sanctions. Russia considers the new U.S. sanctions against Venezuela and Cuba to be illegal, and it plans to do everything to support its allies in Caracas and Havana. The state-run uh, RIA Novosti news agency cited Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei uh, Rybakov as saying on Thursday. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton announced a series of new sanctions against Cuba and Venezuela on Wednesday as the Trump administration sought to boost pressure on Venezuela leader Nicolas Maduro and countries that support him. So I think the U.S. is running out of options um, in terms of what to do with Venezuela. It's only going to be um, so much that Guaido can do because he's been stripped of a lot of powers now. He also can't leave the country unless he gets on a diplomatic flight with a European ambassador. Um, at this point, the only thing the U.S. can do is go in there and carpet bomb, or at least attempt to carpet bomb Venezuela, and that's going to be a disaster because air defense systems being in place, S-300, S-200, S-75, um, Buk M2 missiles, surface to air missile systems. Um, there's, they're pretty lock and loaded. This wouldn't be like Syria where you can just march in there and try to take control of the oil and deny the government of access to their own resources. That's just not going to happen.
My bad. I thought I was unmuted. Yeah, I don't see this Venezuela thing is a little is not escalating, but there's as of right now it seems like a more of a tit for tat thing with Guaido in there, and we all know Guaido is a puppet of Western powers. We all know because he came out of nowhere. There's been investigative journalists that's talked about that Guaido came from nowhere. No one knew of him, and now he is gaining popularity. But his ascension to power, if you want to say, is shrouded in mystery. So now you have Maduro, which, yeah, people, you go, as the saying is, you go with what you know, but Maduro is not, perfect. And we all know that these sanctions on Venezuela's troubles is coming from outer entities because of the money supply, because of the world reserve currency, because of these things, the freezing of the gold, the freezing of the money in foreign banks. It- It's like they're breaking down their country through external measures without actually doing a proxy war or a straight on war.
Well, it, the idea is to have a war of attrition, just basically running them down in, as much as possible. The only problem is that the only problem is that when it does come to that sort of warfare tactic, it's not. It only corrals the people around the government. It doesn't really actually benefit the opposing force.
Okay.
DE, you have anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, you're correct. But if when you start doing this, it's like, okay, I don't know if you can go back to what um, the U.S. and Europeans tried to do to Russia,
Hmm.
and they thought Putin would come to the table, but he didn't. Not only did Putin not come to the table, but he stabilized the Russian economy, and then now Putin is pushing out.
Hmm.
He's saying, you know what, um, it's going to benefit him, but he's going out to help um, other nations that the same thing is happening to. Not everybody, but there are some nations that have been tied to Russia for a long time. Venezuela is one of them. Cuba is one of them. You know, Syria is one of them.
Hmm.
And the Russians are going back and saying, hey, we are still your friend. And these people are saying, okay, come on, you know.
Right.
And if you can keep if he can keep these people from going on there, if they say Venezuela used to be tied to the U.S.
Hmm.
and now it turned to Russia, and 4 or 5 years down the road, yes, it hit rock bottom,
Hmm.
and then now it's rebounding. Guess what's going to happen?
Hmm.
They're not going to go back to the U.S. again, and now you're going to have a stable country right next door to you that don't care about you,
Hmm.
and that's bad, especially with the U.S. economic situation deteriorate.
Hey, we got 30 people watching and 24 likes. Please hit the like button if you're not going to comment in the chat. Thank you. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, how long they can hold out for. Militarily speaking, they can hold out for at least 9 months against the United States, at least, because they have the high ground. All of the ingress and egress um, portions of Venezuela has been locked down. You can't even get in there. There's tanks everywhere, or at least close to these ingress egress areas. Military speaking, I mean, in the border between Colombia and Venezuela has been shut down. So a full scale invasion, that's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. I see
Well,
somebody. I see somebody in the chat says, LOL. No, it's because the price of oil crashed and they could not fund all the free shit. D, you want to take on that?
well, yes, the price of oil crashed, but the problem was Venezuela had money in the bank. They didn't just spend everything. I don't know. Some of these people don't know that Venezuela had petrol stations and a refinery in the U.S. that they owned outright. You as a matter of fact, they still had one up to I said the beginning of this year.
Hmm.
And they were forced into a position where they was taken away. Yes.
Hmm.
But yes, at some point, um, it's going to get to a position where you can't support the people because the sanctions are taking away all your resources. Um, their gold was seized. The cash they had in the bank was seized. When that happens,
Hmm.
then the money that they have coming in from other sources may not be enough that they can feed everybody, as the person says, for free, which wasn't fact at all. Because what was happening is that the rich people in the chat don't understand that in Venezuela, the government didn't own the stores. They didn't own the means of manufacture.
Hmm.
The means of manufacture was private. And what they did was, is like the United States government paying Winn Dixie or one of the big supermarket to, they give the supermarket a few $1 billion, and instead of raising the prices as high as they would normally without that money coming in, they sell the foods cheaper. So the food is only being subsidized. It's not given away free.
Hmm.
And that's what was happening in Venezuela. The people who were talking about that in the chat, listen to ABC and Fox. They're not investigating the thing themselves. Yes, Venezuela still has income, but it's not as much as if they were selling fuel to the United States as they were, a year ago.
Hmm.
So when your income get cut by 75%, now you have to go back to other sources. You got to start leaning on other people. You know, you might have to ask them for food to help you support your people. All the time you're working on some means of bringing your economy back so you can produce your own food. because Venezuela has the land to produce its own food. So I don't know people getting fooled by that. You they have the land to produce their own food. They have other resources besides oil that they can sell,
Hmm.
and the Chinese are there mining, the Turks are there mining, the Russians are there mining. So when all of these things start coming together, even if the economy comes back 50% or 75%, they're still going to be able to subsidize the food that they were given to the poor, education for the poor. It was like 60-70% of Venezuelans had no education uh, before the revolution.
Hmm.
You know, so people gotta really go do some research themselves instead of talking. They're just repeating words that they hear.
Yeah, it sounds like a parrot. It sounds like a parakeet. Raining woman. I want to take. She says, I really need to find some other place to put my money on. I want to take it out of the bank, but I don't want it just sitting in my house. Come back on Friday when we talk about economics. We'll make sure we put that on the agenda to answer your question. Keep in mind that we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, please go to cfp.net.
If the person is wrong, look at it.
No,
BGS
no, no, no,
wrong.
no, 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 no. We gonna move on because
Oh,
we're not gonna chase that let the dog chase his own tail.
uh,
Zo, what's going on,
Hey, what's
brother?
going on?
Stop out there.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, what's going on, fellas? I
I'm
see you
chilling,
guys talking
brother.
about Venezuela.
Yeah, let me jump to this next article.
All right, cool.
All right, this one's from Reuters.com, exclusive. After U.S. sanctions, Venezuela seeks to collect some oil payments via Rosneft. Venezuela state oil company Vidisa has asked at least two of its clients to make payments for Venezuela oil via Russia state energy giant Rosneft, as it comes under pressure from U.S. sanctions. According to Vidisa, source and documents reviewed by Reuters. The proposed payment mechanism is the latest sign of growing proximity of Venezuela's cash-strapped government to Russia as the United States tightens a financial noose around Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro, who it describes as a dictator. Russia has publicly said the U.S. sanctions are illegal and it would work with Venezuela to weather them. In response to Reuters' story, Rosneft had denied it acted as an intermediary for payments to uh, Birista. Under the new approach described to Reuters, Venezuela's state oil company Vista has at least twice asked its clients to make payments to Rosneft for Venezuelan oil, according to the documents. The source said that the company was proposing new arrangements known as factoring to allow Fiesta clients to receive oil without making direct payments to Venezuela state oil company in wake of January sanctions. The arrangement would also allow the cash-strapped Venezuelan state company to receive faster payments, sometimes avoiding the usual 30 to 90-day time frame for completing oil transactions. Rosneft would also make a profit by receiving an intermediation fee, the source and internal Vista document said. So it sounds to me like they're trying to use that oil company, the Russian oil company, as a Western Union to get their money.
I mean, they have no choice when you think about it. I mean, with the sanctions and with what DE was talking about, what happened with the price of oil collapsing, it severely. I mean, it's hurt the Venezuelan oil companies. So Russia has come in to basically, I guess, I wouldn't say bail them out, but to use them, like you said, as a Western Union to get their money out, because the sanctions, U.S. sanctions, are really really harsh. Uh, the sanctions that the U.S. has put on Venezuela has affected the oil company. So it's like with those harsh sanctions on, they need to get their money out. They need to get payments to come through, because they are still selling oil to countries around the world. So I mean, that's very interesting, and they really don't have a choice, because the U.S. is trying to do what they're doing to Iran right now, is trying to strangle the economy and hoping for a collapse.
Okay, so let me get this straight. I'm listening. I'm following. So the price of oil collapsed. Venezuela has a lot of oil reserves, but due to America having control of who can trade to who, they're saying to Venezuela, no country can trade with Venezuela. So because of that, it's hard for Venezuela to trade oil with these other countries, because if each other countries trade oil with Venezuela, they would get sanctioned by the U.S. and they don't want to go through the same thing Venezuela is going through. So now what Venezuela is doing is they can't reach the money they have in other nations' bank accounts, these like Nostra Vulture accounts,
Hmm.
and they can't recuperate their gold because Europe is saying no, or England is saying no. Well, the UK is saying no. You can't have your gold. You can't have your money. So now they spent all the money they saved trying to upkeep their country while battling these sanctions and not having access to their gold and money. So now they're selling oil to other nations through any means they can while still battling sanctions with the US, the crippling sanctions the US put on them. Is that around about a ballpark correct?
Yeah, just about right. So keep in mind that France wanted their gold back too in the 1970s under Nixon, and Nixon, the Nixon administration told them to go take a hike. So France learned their lesson by keeping their gold in U.S. reserves. So you see the United States pulling the same exact tactic by stealing the gold or denying the gold of Venezuela to the Venezuelan government. So this is the same playbook that they've been using for the last 100 years. It hasn't changed. Go ahead, D.
Yeah, Linnell, you're right. But what the big thing is that the everybody is connected. There's a system, like a bank
Hmm.
that that is run by the U.S. government, and everybody is hooked into this bank because everybody uses the dollar. It's like you can only it's like having Citibank as the world bank,
Hmm.
and the only way that you can trade your oil is that your money has to pass through Citibank. You understand? Um, and that's the way the dollar is the soldier at the gate. And every time you trade with that, so you trade at that bank, you the U.S. get a cut, but the dollar itself can be used as a weapon, because if you sell your oil to somebody and they can't pay you, you virtually just given away your oil,
Hmm.
and that's what's happening. So it looks like the Russians now is coming to say, okay, the price of oil is 30 bucks a gallon. I mean, 30 bucks a barrel. So we will take we will buy the oil from you for 28, and we will pay you for it. We will collect the money. You understand? We're collecting $2 off every barrel, and we collect your money for you and hand it to you instead of you having to get dollars.
Hmm.
So if that's what's been happening, so when Venezuela trades for dollars, if you don't have dollars and they say they want to buy gold instead, they will put the gold in the Bank of England. So what ended up happening is that the Bank of England seized the gold, and all the money that was going into Venezuela account in the U.S. seized it, and that's billions of dollars. I mean, if Venezuela uses $1 billion a month to buy food and medication, they now can't do it, and that's what's happening.
Hmm.
They can't buy the medication for the people. They can't get equipment to repair the whether it be oil wells or farm equipment or whatever they buy, because they used to trade a dollar, and the dollar account was in New York. And since it's been seized by the U.S. government, no money can go. Nobody is coming to them. They don't get any payments. So
Right.
now they're getting paid through Russia, and they're getting their money. But this thing is going to take a little bit of time to go through. So, like I was saying in the beginning, you might hit the bottom, but then you start coming up with other ideas on how you can trade, and this is what is happening. Slowly, the other day, come up. You were telling us about the trading in the system similar to Bitcoin. They have their own
The Petro.
now. So you see, they're starting to find ways around around these the roadblocks that the U.S. has put in place.
Hey, Lionel, can you log off and log back on? I want to see if this thing corrects itself.
Okay. All right.
Hey, what's going on, Zoe? You have anything you want to add to that real quick before we go to the next article?
Now you can go to the next article.
All right. All right, this next one is from Newsweek.com. Russia warns U.S. getting ready for war on Venezuela. China says leave Cuba alone too. Russia and China have condemned recent U.S. moves in Latin America, where they accuse President Donald Trump's administration of warmongering and interfering in the affairs of sovereign countries, as the U.S. stepped up efforts to oust Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in favor of political challenger and Parliament Speaker Juan Guaido. U.S. Southern Command Chief Naval Admiral Craig Fowler told Foreign Policy last week that defense officials are on the balls of our feet in anticipation of taking action. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova responded responded Thursday to these remarks, saying this reaffirms our fears that U.S. military action in Venezuela is not an abstraction but a possible reality that is admitted in Washington. Another pseudo reason for getting ready for military invasion is the need to contain Russian influence in Venezuela, Zakharova told reporters, referring to recent reports that the U.S. had held high-level meetings considering the use of force against the crisis-stricken socialist-led state. Once again, I would like to repeat, all Russian actions on Venezuelan territory are consistent with the legal government of the Bolivarian Republic, she added, recalling U.S. invasions of countries such as Yugoslavia and Iraq. Apparently, the U.S. military is really considering the possibility of repeating this sad experience, to start bombing civilian structures and people who are guilty only of supporting the legitimate president of their country that does not like Washington. And this is just a picture of U.S. Navy Admiral Craig Fowler, looking at the geopolitical chessboard.
Well, just like I said before, I don't see the United States using military action against Venezuela because there's so many bad options. I mean, they've tried everything. They tried the protests, they tried the aid coming in, they tried to get the military to break away from Maduro, but none of them has worked. So they're stuck with either two scenarios, which are the ugliest scenarios: either civil war or intervention. Uh, I don't I don't see Trump wanting to do this so soon because reelected because elections are around the corner. Um, I because there's so many bad things that could happen if you do military intervention. For one, despite what the media says, despite what you know we are told here in America with the mainstream media, Maduro has a lot of support with the people, and he has a lot of armed support from the people. I think he could try to call upon for a 1 million man militia. He wants to expand the Bolivarian militia. Then you have the FARC, which they said all the time, which is that revolutionary Marxist group in Colombia, that they will come into the defense of the Maduro regime. The ELN, which is another Marxist group from Colombia, but they have a lot of presence in Venezuela and are very strong. They say they will come to defense of Maduro. So it's so you have the military aspect on the ground, then you have the logistics. I doubt Brazil and Colombia would want to get involved with this because shit could hit the fan in their own countries, and also too, as you mentioned all the time, Mike, the geography. It's terrible to try to put boots on the ground. That hot jungle um, climate it would be a disaster because you don't know what type of diseases are down there and all that, and also logistically how they're gonna get troops into Venezuela. I mean, they could try to do an amphibious assault, but I mean, then what? So there's so many factors at play. I don't foresee the U.S. doing military intervention uh, because if they wanted to, they would have done it by now. They're trying every other option not to. So I don't see it happen. And plus, on top of it all, you have Russia and China who have a lot of interest in the ground in Venezuela. So I don't see that happening. Uh,
Yeah, their troops are on the ground, so bombing, and they're spread out pretty thick too. Um, so going in and try to bomb civilian infrastructure, you hit a Chinese military person or a diplomat or a Russian military person or diplomat, that can escalate pretty high. And it's not just Russia and China that's there. It's Turkey that's there. It's uh, the Lebanese resistant. Iran is there. Um, Quite a few different countries have been. Cuba is also there as well. I think they have about a considerable amount of troops inside the Venezuelan government as well. So this will be a bloody battle. This is not going to be like Syria. With Syria, you had open desert, flat land, um, a porous border between Turkey and Iraq and Jordan. So it was pretty. It was uniquely different than what anybody has ever seen before, what they anticipated. Whereas in Venezuela, all your egress and ingress areas of the country has been locked down militarily to prevent any sort of invasion. I mean, the United States could fly, F-35 bombers in there and take out those missile batteries if they need to. They will overwhelm those batteries if they so needed to. They will probably lose quite a few planes going in though, and that's probably what they're calculating that maybe we shouldn't do that.
exactly. So there's too much stuff on the ground that can that could make this intervention turn into a war of attrition. And that was kind of the genius of Chavez. I mean, Chavez realized that I he removed all those pro-American generals and put his own generals on charge of the military. But even then, he wanted to make another safeguard. That's why he had the National Guard and then he had the Bolivian, the
Bolivarian.
Bolivarian, yeah, a militia, and the collectivos. So it's like it's basically Chavez saying, "Listen," and Maduro as well. Like, listen, if you take me out, this war is not going to end. This war is not going to end because there's going to be millions of people who are going to fight a guerrilla war that'll destabilize Venezuela for the foreseeable future. So I don't. I think that's the reason why the U.S. is kind of like they all talk. Um, they say we might do this in Venezuela. We'll do this in Venezuela, but they're not really going to do anything. That's why I believe, and I think we spoke on this before that they might do the Syria option, which is like, hey, let's get some. the opposition, give them some guns and see what happens. Now that's the most dangerous one because that could go way out of control, especially in that region because they border Colombia and Brazil. So that's that's something that's something they could do. And last but not least, before I get to the next topic, this just goes to show that they're running out of ideas. They don't know how to remove Maduro. I mean, this thing has been going on for a year now, and Guaido is no more closer to the presidency than he was 3-4 months ago. So,
he can't run for president anyways at this point. So Venezuelan government has stripped him of all his power, so he's not very useful. At this point, the only idea is to just get Maduro out. You arm the opposition, but the opposition will be slaughtered. Just because you remember that Maduro, we read an article last week that Maduro wants 1 million militias with their Harley Davidsons and whatnot and their Kawasaki's to go out there and take the streets back from the opposition. So they're not even going to use their military. They're going to send the people after them. That's their equivalent of the Black Panther Party for the most part. And I always find it interesting that certain people in the chat, who pray for the downfall of Venezuela, don't realize that the very people that are in power and who are looking to maintain power are the melanated people. Why would you want to see those people get thrown out? Like, what is the satisfaction in seeing melanated people, black and brown people, to be kicked out of their own government by pale-faced powers? I don't see where's the desire in that. Like, if you're pro-black, and that's if you really are, and you care about the people, why do you want to see these people get thrown out of their own house? What's the deal with that?
Well, they're probably not pro-black to begin with. They're probably just they fell for the line that, oh, Venezuela is a communist hellhole. They're fucking commies, and we have to get rid of all the communists because communism is bad, socialism bad, blah 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 blah. So they probably fell for that U.S. propaganda of just like Venezuela, Marxism equals bad, but they don't look into what Venezuela was like before Chavez, how black Venezuelan, melanated Venezuelan were living. They were living in extreme poverty, and it was Chavez's social programs that brought these people out of poverty. So a lot of people need to do their research on Venezuela. They can't just fall for the line that everything that's anti-American is bad. I mean, that's the whole point. Anything that's anti-American is evil, is bad, is our adversary. We must do whatever it takes to destroy them. And that's the propaganda that we've been brought up upon. When you look at whether you look at CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News, it's the same shit when it comes to foreign policy.
I don't know if you guys follow what's going on in Brazil, but Brazil's got the same problem as Venezuela. Brazil's got the same problem as Haiti. Listen to what I'm saying. Brazil has the same problem as Haiti. Brazil is a wealthy country, but the black population, any kind of dark-skinned people in Brazil, are living almost on the level of Haitian. This guy that just became president of Brazil, he's not interested. He sent the army in to take care of the problem. What the U.S. is doing in Venezuela is something similar to what the British and French did in Egypt. And right now you have the British and the French, which represent America, and America, which is represented by Russia and China in what they call the Suez Canal crisis. The British and the French attacked Egypt when they took over the canal. They said, "Ooh, the canal is ours. The British can't run this canal anymore." And the British sent troops in, and America called up the British Prime Minister and say, "Look, get your troops out. Otherwise, we're going to sink the British pound. We're going to ruin your economy." Them and the French. And they had to pull out. And America is right now in the same position that they're in. They might come to a war, but the economic side of it may keep this from happening.
Hmm. Yeah. Let me get to this next article. This next one is from AlJazeera.com. Iraq summit brings together rivals Saudi Arabia and Iran. This should be interesting. A summit organized by Iraq brought together regional rivals Saudi Arabia and Iran on Saturday as part of a broader effort by Iraqi leaders to fashion the country's image as a friend among neighbors. Scarred by more than 3 decades of war, Iraq is recasting itself as a mediator among neighbors who are often at odds over weighty issues, including the civil war in Syria and U.S. sanctions against Iran. The summit, hosted by Parliament Speaker Mohammed Al Habousi, brought together top legislators of Iraq's 6 neighbors: Syria, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey, Jordan, and Kuwait. Today, Iraq is building a promising strategic partnership with all neighboring countries without any reservations or favoring any party, said Al Habousi. The regional meeting follows months of high profile diplomacy that has involved Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi and President Maram Saleh to engage with these neighbors. The stability of Iraq is necessary in the stability of the region and contributes in return with all its political and economic weight and creative human resources to its Arabs and regional environment, a final declaration said. It emphasized the importance of supporting moderation and combating extremism in all its forms, especially it is as it is people of the region who pay the price of extremism. Abdul Mahdi made visits in quick succession to Iran and Saudi Arabia earlier this year, emphasizing that Iraq would not favor one or the other in the rivalry between them. Instead, Iraq is looking to expand trade with both as it looks to rebuild itself 16 years after after the 2003 U.S. invasion plunged the country into civil war. The country is seeking billions of dollars in aid and investment, particularly in energy and electricity for reconstruction. Um, this is interesting because Iraq gets a lot of its electricity. I think 2/3 of its electricity comes from Iran. Also, Iraq sits in between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So if there was going to be a fight in between Saudi Arabia and Iran, the first thing that Iran is going to do is close off the Strait of Hormuz, and then the second thing that Iran is going to do is send all its militia and its military through Iraq into Kuwait and into Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia would be screwed because they have no way to counter um, land warfare in the way that would be necessary to prevent them from being overrun because all of their borders are pretty porous and 2/3 of the country is uninhabited and covered in sand. So there's only so many places that you can go if you're looking for cover if you're in Saudi Arabia.
You hit the nail on the head, Mike. This is the reason why Iraq is doing this, because the Iraq is probably a bit worried about if there's a shooting war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, because they'll be literally in the middle of it, and they would have the most to lose, because there's already sectarian tensions within Iraq. So if there's a war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iraq will suffer the most, and you'll probably see an explosion, kind of like what we saw a couple years ago when ISIS was like running rampage in Iraq. Um, in one sense, you kind of understand why Iraq wants to do this, because they want to do trade with both countries because they see a lot of benefit of trading with both Iraq and Iran. I mean, Iran is a stable.
Iran and
Uh,
Saudi Arabia.
yeah. Iran, Saudi Arabia. Um, Iran is very stable. Is a very powerful country, has a lot of oil as well, just like Iraq does, and Saudi Arabia has a lot of cash. So um, this is more so Iran trying to raise funds to rebuild the country because the price of oil has collapsed, and so they can't really get money from uh, from selling oil to rebuild the country. So this is them just trying to get both sides to come together. Hopefully,
Mhm.
to come to an agreement. But I don't think nothing would be solved from this because Bin Salman is so determined to fight Iran. Well, to the last American, of course. But Bin Salman is so opposed to Iran that um, it's more likely than not that in the future probably there will be a shooting war between Iran and Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is really poking against Iran, like really poking, like all those recent um, like ambushes near the Iran and Pakistan border. I don't know if you've been following that, Mike. Like, there's been an uptick of separatists, like Baluchi separatists in both Iran and Pakistan, and many Iranians blame Saudi Arabia. All these recent terrorist attacks, Saudi Arabia. So, um, I think Iraq's efforts is pretty, pretty admirable, but I don't think it's going to lead to any lasting agreement between these two powers.
Mhm.
I have nothing on this.
All right, we'll get to the next article. All right, bear with me for a second. We just lost connection. So, all right, this next one is from avolnews.com. Could Russia sell Su-34 fighter bomber to Turkey? Analysis. Though Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu's recent statement listing Russia's Su-34 bombers among alternatives to U.S.-made F-35s has led to speculation as the former cannot build a future for the Turkish air power, said defense analysts. Turkey's plan to press ahead with the purchase of the Russian S-400 air defense system, despite opposition from Washington, has led to the U.S. threatening to expel Ankara from its F-35 Joint Strike Fighter jet program if the deal is completed. On April 10th, uh, Cavusoglu told reporters that Turkey could buy aircrafts elsewhere when asked about Ankara's possible expulsion from the F-35 program. There are Russian Su-34, Su-57, and others. I will absolutely meet my needs from somewhere until I can produce it myself. While the Su-57 option has recently come into prominence among Turkish strategic community, Cavusoglu is the first senior official in the Turkish administration who has publicly named Russia's Su-34 fallback as a potential acquisition target. That comment might have been a slip of the tongue, and the Turkish foreign minister might have meant the Su-35, he said. The Su-34 cannot build a future for the Turkish air power, could uh, nor could do the Soviet-style surface-to-air missile system, according to analysts. While Turkish press has been discussing a possible switch to the Russian solution in case Ankara faces U.S. sanctions over S-400 purchase, this is easier said than done for Turkey after long experience with the Western aircrafts. So, here's what I'm seeing here, that Turkey has been trying to get out of buying expensive equipment for quite some time. If you go back to 2015, let me see if I can pull the article up. You know, because some people think that we don't know what we're talking about. Let me share my screen real quick. Where did my screen just go? Okay. This article right here from the South China Morning Post from 2013 specifies that Turkey to buy Chinese missile defense system, right? This is in 2013. So Turkey has been looking to get out of the Western alliance for quite some time in terms of armory and defense. It says in the contract worth $3 billion, China Precision will help manufacture an advanced weapon system for Western aligned nation, the HQ-9. So the HQ-9 is similar to what the S-300 is. China's version of the S-300, basically. They've modified it, and the United States stepped in under the Obama administration and said, no, that's not going to happen. So they backed out of the deal. Then Turkey went to Russia after the S-400 had been shot down. The Russian fighter jet had been shot down over Syria. So this is a part of reconciliation and reparations. The reparations that were supposed to be paid back to Russia over shooting down and the downing of their jet. So they have to go all the way with this, or face other consequences of dealing with Russia, dealing with Moscow, because they had already signed their, their John Hancock to those reparations that they had to pay back to Russia. So they have to go all the way with this. And that Su fighter jet that they're speaking of, the Su-35, I don't believe it's the 34, but if it's the Su-35, the Su-35 is the equivalent of an F-22 for the most part. DE, you're a former Air Force guy. You have anything you want to say to this?
Well, it depends on how far the U.S. wants to go to keep Turkey from getting the system in place, the S-400 system in place. Because that can take out American systems. It can take out Israeli systems. Whereas if Turkey got U.S. Missile system in place, the Israelis already have the antidote to that. Mm-hmm. So Turkey can use it. They don't have to integrate it into the U.S. system that they have right now. Or they can, in a way, because it's an independent missile defense system. Mm-hmm. I mean, each one of those batteries can operate independently of the others. So that's how the Russians build them. Mm-hmm. Or they can operate integrated, so that they can, like, say Turkey and Iran can work together to keep one enemy at bay using the same weapon system, the S-400. Or Turkey can operate independently from Iran, let's say. That's how the system is built. But when you got American system, the American system is integrated into NATO. They had all the program capabilities in there in the codes, because some of these systems need codes so that one country would start a war against another NATO country, or it won't go to war against Russia on its own, or something like that. So you have to. Turkey can use the system, but if the U.S. let Turkey out, then who else is going to want to get out also? Yeah.
I just want to answer something in the chat from Sam C. He said a few minutes ago. I just want to answer it though. Sam C says, if the Saudis getting something under our agreement, don't we jump in? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's a polarizing relationship. The thing is, Saudi Arabia owns a lot of U.S. assets. All they have to do is pull out, and that can destroy the U.S. economy overnight. And if not overnight, it will be a slow. It'll be a slow. It'll be a death by 1,000 cuts, if that makes any sense. And they also can force an oil embargo as well. So they won't trade oil with other countries that do business with the United States. That will really screw the United States big time. They did it in 1973, and they can do it again if they want to.
Yeah. So this the Turkish and Russian relationship after the shot down of the Russian jet over Syria is like it's a totally like it's a total twist that happened, because it's like when Russia first intervened into Syria, Turkey was like, you know, against the intervention. They're like, oh, Russia's bombing citizens, blah blah blah. But then you see this turnaround because Putin probably gave Erdo a call, be like, hey, don't fuck with us. But in regards to yeah, but to regards to or to Turkey buying the Russian jet, I think it just comes down to the F-35 is expensive. Mike, you know this. I mean, it costs like what $1 trillion to build. How many years? And there's still like faulty tech going on with the F-35. And like you said, this is just Turkey trying to wean away from buying expensive Western weapons. Uh, One thing I'll say about Russia and China is they can develop cheap but effective weapons that can take out these Western expensive weapons. For example, you mentioned the HQ-9, which is the Chinese version of the S-300, the Russian S-300, the S-400, and soon the S-500. That missile, that the ballistic missile that Russia has, the name escapes me right now, but that's a devastating but ballistic missile. The Russian jets that the Russian jets that they are developing are pretty cheap compared to their Western counterparts. So Turkey's like, listen, why are we spending all this cash for equipment that is very faulty, and the upkeep is even more expensive over time than the original price of the jet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is more so of Turkey, and Turkey's not the only one that's weaning away from Western weapons, because the price of the F-35 was ridiculous. It took them fucking 20 something years to build that goddamn thing, and then it always was over budget. And if the final cost of it was $1 trillion, that's a waste for a jet. $1 trillion. So I don't blame Turkey.
Well, you have to keep in mind how long jets stay in service, right? The Russian MiG 21 is probably one of the most robust fighter jets of all time, and it's still being used to this very day. It came during the 1960s. That's over 50 years ago, and they've been able to upgrade the avionics from third generation to fourth generation and almost fifth generation. There's an Israeli company, I forget the name, it escapes me right now, have built digital systems for that fighter jet. despite the fact that it's close to 50 years old. So usually fighter jets stay in service for quite some time. DE, am I off on that?
No, you can keep a fighter jet flying.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 15, for instance, the F-15, the U.S. F-15. People don't realize that that airplane, it's like that came out in about 73, 74,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they start putting out squadrons of them like 76,
Mm-hmm.
75, 76. So that airplane is very old. But once you upgrade the avionics, upgrade the engines, you have a good airplane. It's now the crew that has to learn how to fly it.
What is going on here?
No, that was by somebody called me.
Okay.
It's now the crew that has to learn to fly the airplane capably. But the airplane is very good. When I saw that airplane operate
Mm-hmm.
face to face, I mean, I was stationed at one of the station that they did demos on the airplane. Between that and the F-16, which is F-18 too. Um, Airplanes are very capable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
I see it went face to face with a couple of Russian jets. That the Russian jets were a little bit more maneuverable, but it still held its own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the airplane is a good airplane. Once you got and it's very capable. I'm serious. It's very capable airplane.
And it's a multi-role fighter, so
Yep.
it's not a one-trick pony. So it does multiple things. It can carry nuclear missiles, nuclear cruise missiles.
Oh
So
yes.
keep that in mind. So that's why it's so important, because it has to be ahead. It has to be ahead of whatever everybody else is using.
Yeah.
The only problem is that China already got the blueprints on it and already reverse engineered it, even with the bugs. So
The Chinese still can't produce that airplane with the capability that it truly has because um, they can't get the GE engines that it has in it. You know what I'm saying?
right,
They can't
right.
get they can put in similar avionics, but the avionics is going to have bugs in it.
Oh yeah.
So you got to have the capability to make it, and then the capability to fly it. Once you get a good airplane, you can fly it. Once you got an airplane that is not a good airplane, it makes it harder to fly. The crew, the pilots can't fly a bad airplane. You can't make a
Mhm.
bad airplane do something good. You know what I'm saying? So when the U.S. came out with that airplane, it was way by far the best airplane that was out at the time. Even Raphael, the French, couldn't make one that's good as that
Right.
one. And the Russians caught up, but it's the Russians fly in a different way that the U.S. pilots fly. But
Hmm.
that airplane, man, that if I was going to fly a fighter airplane, that's probably it. Even though with the stealth airplane, because I seen that airplane fly, they put two wing tanks on it. We call it wing tanks with fuel,
Hmm.
and loaded it up with bombs, um, rockets, missiles. I mean, it is a multi-role. They can attack a ship and then turn around, attack inland target. You know, go after a submarine. That's a very good airplane.
And keep in mind that U.S. Military industrial complex always makes everything expensive. Remember, we covered an article a few months ago, Lionel and myself, about the Zumwalt Navy ship. The United States Navy had ordered 32 of these ships, and only 4 of them actually were built. So they spent a considerable amount of money, and come to find out that these ships don't even work. They actually sit in ducks in the water. So all the money they spent on it, that went into somebody's pockets. Maybe Lockheed Martin, maybe some generals, maybe somebody, but it went into somebody's pocket. It didn't really benefit the U.S. Navy at all. All right, let me get to this next article. This next one is from Salon. This next one is from Salon.com. Reporter Shamini Nawani on the secret history of America's defeat in Syria. When the war in Syria was recently declared decisively over, there were few correspondents or witnesses to turn to for a credible look at exactly what happened during the 8 years of conflict. The questions were many, but I could count on one hand those worth putting them to. Among these were Charmine Nawani, whose work I have long counted distinctly through thorough and honest amid coverage that, in her view, as well as mine, it hit a new low by way of collapse, professional standards, and abandoned ethics. Nawani's pieces, written for a variety of publications, consistently reflect her hard work on the ground, work nearly no one else did. She is eyes wide open and beholden to no national interest or media slant. Nawani brings impressive credentials to the craft. After earning a master's in journalism from Columbia, she was for 4 years, 2010 to 2014, a senior associate at St. Anthony's College, Oxford. It was during those years that she began to make her mark covering the Middle East from the bureau of one in Beirut. So basically, just to summarize, basically what they're saying is that the United States lost this war. And I think we covered an article last week about what the United States can learn in Afghanistan that they learned in Vietnam. So we see artifacts of war where the United States has to pull out. They just don't have a choice. Not that I'm rooting for either side, but what I'm saying here is you came, you lost, you left. Get out, while it's still, while the getting is good, right? So the United States has never been able to really conquer these countries in the way that they thought that they could. And what happened in Vietnam also is being reflected in other areas of conflict. And it's not really working to the advantage that the U.S. has hoped for. And I think what's happening is that they're realizing that we really cannot hold territory in the way that we in the way that we think we should. If that makes any sense. Anybody else want to jump in? Go ahead.
That's very true, Mike. The problem with the U.S. military and U.S. military doctrine is we saw with Iraq was shock and awe. We bomb the shit out of the enemy, then we go in the blitzkrieg and take as much territory, but they take the territory, but then but they can't, they take it, but they can't hold it. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they can't hold the territory is simply because they don't know how to fight against an insurgency. This is something that's plagued not only the U.S. but other empires in the past. Is the U.S. military is built to fight other conventional powers and then leave and then come home with a parade and plus all that good stuff. I mean, look with the first Persian Gulf War. They pushed Saddam out of Kuwait and American troops came home. They threw all these fucking parades and blah blah blah. So what we saw in Afghanistan and Iraq and what we saw in Syria was that one, the U.S. cannot defeat insurgencies because to fight an insurgency, you would have to be there for the long haul. And even then, even if you stay there in the long haul, the population hates you. The population despises you. They see you as an occupying force. It's kind of similar with black people in America, how they view the police. They see the police as an occupying force. You're not from here, and you're policing us, so you don't understand us. Mm-hmm. So then you oppress us. Two is also the rise of multipolarity. As we saw in Syria, Russia came through, basically intervened to help Assad to push back against the rebels. The U.S. supported the rebels. The rebels got their ass kicked from fucking Hama, Aleppo to Damascus. The U.S. then was forced to support the Kurds, but now they're stuck in a rock and a hard place. Like, okay, we support the Kurds, but Turkey's an important ally in NATO, so they want to. So they didn't get the end game that they wanted, so they're going to withdraw. And the same thing has happened with Iraq, because okay, ISIS is defeated in Iraq, but Iran is not going anywhere, and the U.S., despite all the bluff making the IRGC a terrorist organization, they're not going to bomb our Iranian officials in Iran because that would start a war. So it's more so the U.S. believed this hype way too much in the 90s after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and that they thought going into these wars would be easy. They got into Afghanistan. They thought, oh, we're going to be here for a year and that's it. We're still in Afghanistan. They went to Iraq, shock and awe, take the territory, but they couldn't maintain it. Took so many casualties, fought a bloody insurgency. It was like, we can't do this anymore, so they were drawing. And with Syria is more so they couldn't dictate the reality of the ground because Russia and Iran did. All the U.S. can do is just bomb at ISIS, but they can't. They can't get the end game that they wanted, and it comes down to also Washington establishment not knowing how geopolitics work. They just think that we are the strongest military the world has ever seen, because that's what they keep saying. We are the strongest military that the world has ever seen, so we can do whatever. But then when they get into these conflicts, they have to withdraw. They believe they're hyped too much. I think it's a combination of all those things that we see.
What's going on, J. Charles? All right, let me get to this next article. All right, this next one is from Al Jazeera.com. Omar al-Bashir, brother arrested as Sudan protests continue. Sudan's military rulers have arrested two brothers of deposed President Omar al-Bashir as hundreds of people marched in the capital of Khartoum, calling for a swift handover of power to civilian leadership. Shams al-Din Kabazi, spokesman for the Transitional Military Council, said on Wednesday that Abdullah and Abbas Hassan al-Bashir were taken into custody as part of the continuing campaign of arrests against symbols and leaders of the previous regime. The announcement came as sources said Sudanese authorities have transferred al-Bashir from house arrest to the Kabar prison in northern Khartoum. A former Sudanese minister told the Associated Press news agency that al-Bashir, who was overthrown by the military following months of protests against his nearly 30-year rule, was moved to the maximum security prison late on Tuesday. A guard at the Khobar prison confirmed the move to Al Jazeera, saying, I saw President Omar al-Bashir being brought in by dozens of army officers. There was no official comment on the deposed leader's whereabouts. The military has said it would not extradite the deposed leader to the International Criminal Court to face charges of war crimes and genocide in the region of Darfur, but would instead put him on trial at home. See, this is interesting because we covered an article last week exposing that Mossad was behind all of this, of the overthrow of the Sudanese government, Omar al-Bashir. And they were also involved in the overthrow of Morsi in Egypt. They were also involved in um, supplying weapons and material to the rebels in Syria, or the terrorists in Syria, because rebels is too sexy of a name for them. And then you take into consideration um, United States not the United States government, but the annexation of the Golan Heights and the West Bank. You know, Israel has a lot of a lot of blood on their hands from all this. De, you have anything you want to add to this?
Not right now. No.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Israeli history, the Mossad has been have been behind like killing Iranian scientists, killing German scientists, Russian scientists who they suspected probably working with either Egypt back in the day when Egypt and Israel were hostile. This is more so of Israel feeling itself because the because we may like it or not, Israel is at its best geopolitical position it's ever been since its foundation. All their enemies are either weak and divided or occupied with other things. They haven't had a major the only major conflict that they had was against Hezbollah, where they got their ass kicked. But since then, they have not tried to antagonize Hezbollah because they know the next go around will be even worse. So this is Israel trying to make itself seem like it's a regional a superpower, and also Israel's looking to Africa. They see that the continuing development of Africa is a real thing, and Israel wants to get involved with that. They see the potential of it. That's why they're establishing ties with like Ethiopia and like I think Kenya,
Well, they
uh,
also applied. They also applied for membership of the African Union.
which is ridiculous. If the African Union accept that, it's a joke. I mean, it's already a joke of an organization.
I
But
wouldn't say it's a joke of an organization, but I will, because the African Union right now, as we speak, are deciding whether or not to kick Sudan out of the African Union right now,
mm,
given the sufficient evidence of Mossad involvement or Israel. So they are taking some action. Um, it could, they have the potential to put pressure down. But we talked about this before, that black people in America also have to take responsibility as well. Um, an African American Union should have came out and condemned the overthrow of a government without having some form of democratic transition. You know,
mm-hmm.
why overthrow him now with the sanctions in place? Why not get the sanctions lifted? But the reality is, um, all of these countries have some form of relationship with Russia, whether it's Libya, whether it's Sudan, whether it's Egypt, or Syria, Venezuela, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, and you can throw in Cuba as well. I mean, there's this sort of urgency to subdue any of these countries from doing business.
And another country that was working with Israel. This is Saudi Arabia. Now, now a couple years ago, Sudan joined the war in Yemen effort. They sent some ground troops, but apparently a lot of Sudanese troops were being used as cannon fodder. They were getting slaughtered. So Sudan withdrew, and that led to a major split between Sudan and Saudi Arabia. So this could also be Mohammed bin Salman, aka Mr. Bonesaw, working with Israel to remove Omar Bashir, who could to set up a government that is more closer to Saudi Arabia.
Well, they were already close to Saudi Arabia. They were very dependent upon Saudi aid money because of the sanctions. So they're already a part of the Arab League. So they're strategic. They're in a strategic location along the Red Sea. And Russia had planned on putting a military, a naval base inside the Red Sea, and in Sudan, because everybody else has a base inside Djibouti, except the Russians. The Russians got denied for whatever reason.
Interesting. Interesting. But I think Saudi Arabia is behind this because they were enraged when Sudan was like, "Nah, we can't be part of this war. Our men are being used as cannon fodder."
So, peace, brothers. Peace.
What's going on? What's going on?
Not much. So, in terms of the military taking control, what is their agenda? Like, I'm not sure what their agenda is because
They were paid off by Israel, Mossad, and that's what happened.
yeah, because I noticed I was reading watched a few articles. The civilians are just like, hey, when are you gonna hand it back? When are you gonna do the transition to hand it back over to us? And they're just like, nope, like they're not doing anything. So
Same playbook with Egypt and Sisi. The military overthrew Morsi and put their guy in, which is Sisi, which was controlled by Israel. Military dictatorship in Sudan, just like in Egypt, just like in just like what they wanted in Syria.
So as a learning lesson, right? Because this is like a lesson. Why do people keep falling for this, especially in these African countries? They keep falling for these okie dokes, right? So
Money talks.
Gotcha.
As long as you have, as long as you have people that can be bought out, man, there will be no loyalty. There'll be no loyalty.
So how do you think this is going to affect? Go ahead. Sorry, let me cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that black people are so easily duped. For a few dollars, man. I remember Prodigy told 50 Cent that the FBI had sent them there to spy on him and to actually take him out. This is the type of stuff that we have to go through. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to actually go through this. We have to do a better job at vetting people before they even come to our hangouts. I mean, we have quite a few nefarious characters who keep commenting about Venezuela and don't realize that you're working against the best interest. Professor Gerald Horn of University of Houston, Texas, basically said that he doesn't understand why there aren't more African Americans inside Venezuela. Why aren't you down there? Because people down there look just like you. You should be down there working with those people.
Yeah, I think that's just a case of it's a lack of an agenda. And we're not all on one accord. Again, like, because I look at a country like Israel, right, and I'm trying to think, okay, how are they so powerful? People might say Israel is evil, but in terms of power, right, they have a lot of power. So it's like, how do they do that? I think they have an agenda for the past 30, 40 years to get there, right? But they did whatever it took. So I think we need to learn from that. And stick on code and kind of just remember we need to all be on one accord to have an agenda and do whatever it takes. And again, it does take vetting people, right? Because ask people what is your agenda? Is your agenda aligns with ours? If it doesn't, then get out. So I think the learning lesson is from this is that a country or people with no agenda are literally like sheep. They can just get. They're like a termite infested building in a hurricane. Like it's gonna get blown right over. So. That's just the way I learned from it.
Well, yeah. Keep in mind that Israel has no choice but to do this, right? In order for the state of Israel to survive, it thrives off of eliminating those who are around it, including the indigenous population. So that means Palestinians have to suffer by their justification because they cannot go back to Europe. It is impossible for Zionist people to survive in a pseudo nation state in Warsaw. Not going to happen. Those Europeans would not tolerate those Zionists occupying portions of Europe and calling it, the homeland. They wouldn't tolerate it. At one point they wanted to put them in Africa. They wanted to put them in Uganda and South Africa and Tanzania. It's just ridiculous. In Madagascar. I mean, the audacity to think that you can just take land from other people and people are just going to, turn a blind eye and a deaf ear and look the other way. That's just not say anything. It's impossible. They can never hold Africa anyways. It will be impossible for them to hold Africa. The Boers have a hard time even surviving in South Africa. You let alone a bunch of a bunch of Zionists coming out of Europe trying to occupy Africa in that fashion. That won't work. We saw what happened in Zimbabwe and the rest of those former colonial states in Africa. That did not last very long.
But in terms of Israel, applying to join the AU, and then the AU getting ready to kick out Sudan, the African Union, we're in a period right now where Africa as a whole, right, all the unified countries are literally on like front stage right now. So we're gonna see where they really stand right now, just with from how they move from this. And I really think that where Africa, what they have, what their agenda, from what I'm seeing, is that they're not going to include Israel in the African Union, and I think that anybody associating with Israel, as far as even the whole situation with Sudan, they're going to get kicked out because Africa right now, they have so much to gain in the future where things are going. I don't really think that they're going to align with themselves with Israel. So I think Israel, yeah, at the pinnacle of their power right now, but I think it's going to start to wane in the distant future. So that's just my. What do you think, so?
Israel's a sinking ship, to be honest. That's why I don't foresee. I hope the African Union doesn't bring Israel to the African Union. But what Mike says is true. Israel needs the African Union because they see uh, the growing potential of Africa. Africa is being developed. Africa has a lot of resources. For the survival of their state, they're going to need to have a lot of trade because Israel's getting more and more unpopular. Israel's become more and more toxic. Israel's going to face a similar situation that happened to South Africa in the 90s, where countries will probably sanction Israel. I mean, I know right now that's like we can't even foresee that because the U.S. backs Israel in the UN Security Council. But the more brazen Israel gets, the more bold Israel gets, they're bound to fuck up. I think the biggest thing uh, that would bring down Israel would be them annexing the entire West Bank, because if you're going to annex the West Bank, you're going to have to send troops to basically occupy every Palestinian town, every Palestinian city, and the Palestinians are not going to take shit laying down. They're going to start, a guerrilla warfare. They're going to do ambushes, IEDs. But so the main point is Israel is not. Israel doesn't have a future. However, um, they're in need of a lot of resources. One thing that will help Israel is they discovered oil off the shores of Israel, so that would probably give them a little boost. But this is more so of them needing Africa, and them meddling into Africa is for them trying to set up friendly countries within Africa that would be friendly to Israel, so to do trade,
Well,
basically.
Here's another angle to look at. They don't worry too much about the Palestinians. The issue isn't about Palestinians fighting. The issue is getting Palestinian citizenship. If Palestinians outnumber them, damn near 4-1, what that would do to Israel, to the Zionists, is it would vote them right out of office. They have to create an apartheid state to keep Palestinians subdued, much like we had Jim Crow laws in the United States, and much like the apartheid of South Africa, that's a necessary process in order for them to survive. They cannot survive with in the equal in the equal society. It's impossible. Um, Once black people got the right to vote in the 1960s and other civil rights uh, um, victories, things started changing for for a lot of for a lot of white people. Is one of those things that it's hard for them to survive anywhere on this planet um, without taking land and things by force. And you have to keep in mind that the European Union just recently made changes to their policies about Americans coming to Europe. You have to apply for a visa now. There's a lot of views that Europeans have that white Americans just don't have. Um, they don't share the same views at all. In fact, this is part of the issue. Westernized pale-faced people have very difficult times interacting with other people. That in Israel, the Jews are not reproducing enough children. So Jewish women, because of feminism, is actually destroying their society inside out. And because of that, a lot of Jewish men have to go out and go marry other groups of women. But that's a whole other story. And it's just one of those things. People have to keep that in mind that they're fighting for survival at this point. They really don't have too many places they can go.
Can I say something? One of the problems that we have is that our people refuse to study, especially history.
Mhm.
And in order to know anything about what's happening today, you got to know what happened yesterday. And the so-called Jewish people, when you study their history, you see that what they're doing now is not something that's unusual. They were in the war in Spain. They jumped from the Muslim side to help the Spanish. They were in the war in Turkey. They were in the war in Babylon. They brought in the enemy to overthrow the king of Babylon. You got to know this history. So what they're doing now is, right now they're trying to overthrow the government of South Africa. Them and the board.
Right.
So you got to know this history. That's why I didn't want to comment on this, because people got to know their history and read of some of the people who don't like to study. Especially, we don't even know our own history and our relationship with them. Serious. This is like a man come into your house and took everything out of your house and claimed to be you, took your name and everything. And then you don't know who this guy is. Your family didn't, you wouldn't even study enough to know that this guy did this to you, to your family. So me, I that's why I didn't want to comment on this thing.
All right, I need to get to the next article. This one is from the New York Times. Seth Rich was not source of leaked DNC emails, Mueller report confirms. The special counsel's report confirmed this week that Seth Rich, a young Democratic National Committee employee whose unsolved killing became grist for a right-wing conspiracy theory, was not the source of the thousands of internal DNC emails that WikiLeaks released during the 2016 presidential race, officially debunking a notion that had persisted without support for years. Tucked amid hundreds of pages of the report's main findings, the special counsel Robert S. Mueller III took aim at WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange, for falsely implying that Mr. Rich was somehow involved in the dissemination of the emails, an act that aided President Trump's campaign. WikiLeaks and Assange made several public statements apparently designed to obscure the source of the materials that WikiLeaks was releasing, according to the report, which showed that WikiLeaks corresponded with the true source of the leaked emails, Russian hackers, after Mr. Rich's death. The confirmation comes after years of anguish for Mr. Rich's family, who fought attempts to politicize and spread misinformation about his killing, which is believed to have happened during a bungled robbery attempt. The theory linking Mr. Rich to the email leak took root in conservative circles and was cited by prominent conservatives like Newt Gingrich and right-wing commentators like Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and Alex Jones of InfoWars. WikiLeaks offered a $20,000 reward for information about Mr. Rich's killing, fueling speculation that he was the source. Fox News also published an article, which the network later retracted, suggesting that Mr. Rich was killed in retaliation for having leaked the emails. In a statement, Mr. Rich's brother, Aaron Rich, responded to the special counsel's report, saying it provided hard facts that demonstrate this conspiracy is false. I hope that the people who pushed, fueled, and ran headlines, articles, interviews, talk, and opinion shows, or in any way use my family's tragedy to advance their political agendas. Despite our pleas, that what they were saying was not based on any fact. We'll take responsibility for the unimaginable pain that they caused us, he said. Mr. Rich was 27 when he died after being shot on the streets of Washington on July 10, 2016. On July 14, WikiLeaks received an encrypted file from Russian hackers, according to the report. The organization published thousands of internal DNC emails later that month, just days ahead of the Democratic convention. That chronology is damning, like Mike Gottlieb, a lawyer for Aaron Rich, said, pointing out that Mr. Rich had already been killed when the file was sent. In statements beginning that summer, Mr. Assange and WikiLeaks implied falsely that Mr. Rich had been the source of the emails, the special counsel's report said. In addition to the $20,000 reward, Mr. Assange said in an interview that he was interested in Mr. Rich's death because we are very interested in anything that might be a threat to alleged WikiLeaks sources, according to a report. Even after intelligence officials announced that Russia was behind the email hacking, Mr. Assange continued to deny Russian involvement and told a congressman that DNC hack was an inside job, according to the report. Let me just stop here because I don't want to read this whole thing because I had already talked about this on BGS's platform years ago, a few years ago when this happened, and this was not a hack. The FBI was never able to do forensics on the server because they were denied access to it by the DNC itself, Debbie Weissman Schultz. Okay. Number two, they used CrowdStrike, which is a private cybersecurity forensics company, to do the forensics on the server. The CrowdStrike themselves said they found no evidence of those claims. And number three, the Podesta emails was actually compromised not through a hack, but through phishing, a phishing campaign. This guy clicked to change his password through a spear phishing campaign, and put his password in as password, and it was compromised that way. They're saying that it was Russian hackers, but there's no evidence to support this claim because the FBI never did the forensics on the server to begin with. And number two, CrowdStrike said they found no evidence of that. So how did they come to this conclusion that it was Russian hackers? Where's the evidence?
It's just to play up the hype that, the lie that Russia hacked the election or whatever, or that Russia hacked the DNC, despite all the evidence showing that they didn't really hack the DNC. It was more of Just like I said, it, it was more of like an inside job, and it's kind of crazy because no one's really investigating the DNC emails that much. Like what went down. It's just the DNC trying to uh, go on with the lie that Russia hacked the DNC, spread these emails, caused people not voting for Hillary, and then Trump won. That's basically the whole game plan with this whole Russia hacking bullshit. Even though there's no evidence, even the intelligence agencies, they didn't really say Russia hacked the election. They say it's a possibility, which they could never prove, and yet the media and the DNC just ran with it, which is crazy to me, to be honest, because there's no evidence Russia hacked the election. I don't know how the media still gets it wrong, but
because the media is working on behalf of Langley. So what they're trying to say is that Guccifer and the DC leaks um, was Russian, but there's no evidence to prove that it was Russian. It was just it was a campaign. DC leaks was a campaign. They accused it of being Russian, but there was no evidence to actually prove that. One of the things that people have to understand is that the CIA has been known to um, leave create a hacking campaign and leave the traces behind as if it was Russians. But the reality was there was no way to prove that because the FBI never had access to the server, despite the fact that they had a warrant for the server. They already had a request in for it to do the forensics, and they never got access to it. So how did they know that? And why did Hillary Clinton take a sledgehammer to all her Blackberries and her iPhones?
They don't talk about that. I mean, that's so suspicious. Hillary taking a sledgehammer to destroy her Blackberries. It's just crazy. It's just crazy that this whole thing is so insane with this whole Russia hack, DNC and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter. I mean, I don't like Trump or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
I just see this more so. I know I hate using this term like that conservatives use, like the deep state, but it just proves that the deep state is real. Trump, just by Trump mentioning that, hey, we might have good relations with Russia, set them off.
Mm-hmm.
Set them off to the point that he won. They ran with the narrative that it was the Russians that helped him win the election. And they never look at why Hillary lost or that what the fuckery that the DNC was doing to Bernie Sanders and all that shit. So him just even saying that, hey, we may have to work with the Russians, set them off. Like it set this deep state off, and that's why there's this internal fight, which is it's just incredible to see. There's this internal fight within the intelligence agency of those who support Trump and those who don't. And unfortunately, their obsession to basically pin Russia helping Trump winning the election, or foreign adversary help interfere with our election, is going to tear down those institutions. Because best believe, even after Trump is gone, these intelligence agencies are never going to be the same because they've been politicized, which is not what they originally set up to be. But it's not going to be the same after this.
Well, keep in mind that they put sanctions on Russia, and the Europeans also put sanctions on it based on this false information. So you're talking $500 billion in sanctions in revenue has been lost due to a false claim that foreign actors on behalf of the Russian state, on behalf of the Russian Federation, compromise a U.S. Server that was operating outside of the framework of the U.S. government. This server should never have been outside of the framework of the Department of Homeland Security. It should have been within the network. So the question is, why was that server outside the network? And two, who had access to it? If it wasn't Seth Rich, according to this article, who had access to it? And where are the logs? And how come the FBI doesn't have access to it? Where's James Comey in you know, with his evidence?
Yeah, Mike
Exactly.
asked the right question. Mike asked the correct questions. I mean, why would you be putting government documents and information? These are operations that were run by people high up in the government. The Secretary of State is like next to the president.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the president, if your Secretary of State is like one of the most important positions in the government.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the one that deals directly with every government on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you have a server with information that is so delicate about every government on the planet outside the protection of NSA, CIA, all those people who are supposed to provide the government with protection?
And why did she talk to Colin Powell about how to set this server up? He's a Republican. Why the hell would he know? Oh, and he gave her information on how to set it up. So not only are you making this bipartisan, but those are your buddies too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That this whole Russian thing, for me, it was fishy from the start.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, "Oh, Russia hacked." First of all, when they keep saying, "Oh, Russia hacked the election," wait, what does that even mean? Like, and the thing is, the average American thinks, "Oh, you mean Russia hacked into the voting machines, and then they made Trump president, and then it just devolved into." Oh well, they hacked into the Podesta emails, and then WikiLeaks will leak them, and then and all that shit. But
And
no,
right.
continue, Mike.
No, I was just gonna say that they're tying Julian Assange into this because they're saying that Seth Rich communicated with Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, who he himself is a journalist, and WikiLeaks is a publication. You're saying that the founder and the publication, are should be indicted for tampering with government electronic tampering of government resources. But that government resource was outside of the government itself. So the question is, who approved of this device to be outside of government oversight? Where was the oversight on this? Why does the FBI not have access to that server? How come the NSA is collecting all this data, but they didn't have collection on that? Where is Central Intelligence on this? Where is DHS? Why do you have CrowdStrike, a third-party company, doing forensics on a server, and then they come back and they say we found no evidence of Russian hacking? And why is this woman? If all you wanted, if you're accusing Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, and the publication itself, which is WikiLeaks, why didn't you just go to the embassy in London, the Ecuadorian embassy, and interview Julian Assange while he was there? It wasn't like he ran off somewhere. What did he run under the bed? Did he not answer the door? He stopped answering his phone. What happened? Because he's been there for the last 7 years. So why not just go there and interrogate him there? Why, how come Christopher Steele is still roaming about? Why is he credible and Julian Assange is not? There's so many questions that are not being answered in accordance to this, because fingers are being pointed, but there's no evidence to actually back it up. And you have all of these news outlets, CNN, ABC, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, every single night talking about Russia this, Russia that. Mika Brzezinski, Morning Joe talking all this shit, and yet they don't even have evidence to support what they're saying. So basically, you are fake news because you're reporting things that are not true, and now that the record is out, you're like, okay, we'll just move on from here. Wait a second, you just reported a whole bunch of false claims about somebody, about a nation state that can cause a war. You're accusing the Russian Federation of tampering with government resources and extracting government espionage.
And what's interesting about that is now these outlets, media outlets, are saying they want Mueller to go on trial to back up his claims, and it's like, Mueller, don't get it twisted. Mueller is a war hero. He's decorated. He's a true patriot. When I looked him up, he's 100. So it's like they have to answer. Like they're not ready to answer. They're not ready for the real answers to come out, man. And man, that's just crazy, man. Because like, I'm saying for months, just they kept pushing this narrative, and now it's like they can't back it up, man. They're it's kind of crazy, man. But it's like it's sad to say America is built on lies, right, and deceit, and now it's like they can't back it up anymore. Like they lie so much, they have done so many things. It's like they can't. It's like right in front of everybody's face now. So, um, it's crazy to see this happen, man. It's crazy to see this happen in my lifetime, where it's like I don't know, man. They can't do anything right now because every time they come with a lie, they try to bring another lie up, and the truth is coming out. And
So who?
I want to see what the news outlets are going to do now. What they're going to say, because they have to answer to this, man. They have to.
Well, they don't really have to. They can just say, we misspoke and move on, right? But my question is now, who killed Seth Rich, and why did they kill Seth Rich? They say it was because of a botched robbery, but they never took anything from him. When they found him, he didn't have any. He still had his wallet and everything. So, what kind of robbery is that where you get robbed for nothing?
Mike, you are a security man,
I
computer
am.
security guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now every computer, every server's got an administrator, and that guy is security on his, especially something like that, will have to be top notch. And every time that server got hacked, somebody knew something about it. Either they knew it was getting hacked and they didn't say anything, or the people who were going in there had access to it. So where's the security? Who are the people who were in charge of the security on that server? I don't hear any names coming out. I haven't never seen a name on it.
The names behind the server that set it up for the Clinton administration were Pakistani. That's another twist here. Pakistani intelligence, the ISI. These guys work for ISI. Why are these? Why do you have Pakistani computer engineers setting up your equipment? And where are those guys at now? How come they're not being interrogated?
That's my question.
You have guys coming from a nation state known for terrorism, known for state-sponsored terrorism, coming into the United States, setting up a server for the Clinton administration. Okay. Oh, not for the Clinton administration. Sorry. The Democratic National Committee. Sorry. Why are they setting this up? And why is it outside of the confines of national security?
Okay, this is my question. Outside of U.S., right? Uh, Other countries. Well, how are we being perceived right now? Because like there's so much internal strife, internal things going on with U.S. right now. This happened in other superpowers in history, and that what happens after that. So it's like, um, I don't know, man. It seems like there's so many different agendas. There's so many people who have power.
Mhm.
It's like a ship, going crazy directions, right? It's going everywhere. And it's like, man, it's like I think America has failed leadership right now. It's like
Mhm.
it's sad to say, but it's like it's not a sinking ship yet, but it's going to sink because like there's no agenda, right? And everybody has this that is like you have the elites, you have deep state, you have you know the military. There's so many people who have powers. Like where is this thing going to end up? Where's it going? Because I think the wild card was WikiLeaks, man. When they start publishing a lot of these documents, man, it was like wildfire. It's like a cancer that can't be stopped because now people are searching for the truth, right? Just like you right now, for the past 15 minutes, you put out a series of questions, which a normal person, a common person would hear that and be like, he's right. Like, I want those answers, and people are starting to ask these questions. So it's like, I just want to see I want to see the trajectory course of America, where they're going in the next 30, 40 years, man, because like right now, it's a mess. It's look, they're moving sloppy right now. It's looking crazy. So, yeah.
Andy in the chat room asked a question. The biggest question is why they made it easy to hack. They did not make it easy to hack. What happened was somebody had full privilege access. So there was no reason to hack it if everybody was administrator on their computer or on the server. So all they had to do was stick in a USB thumb drive and hit right click, the emails for Microsoft Exchange server and say send to thumb drive, and that's where all your emails went. Anyways, let me get to this next article. This is
So, just real quick, what do you think things will go from here now? Because as far what do you think things will go now? Are they gonna put him from or what do you think? What do you think is just gonna go next?
Jack, your mic broke up a whole lot. You're gonna have to repeat that question again.
Let me try to jump out and jump back in.
All right. All right. This next one is from Time.com. Elizabeth Warren calls for House to begin impeachment of Trump. Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren on Friday called for President Donald Trump's impeachment, saying the country can't afford to ignore the obstruction uncovered by Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. The severity of this misconduct demands that elected officials in both parties set aside political considerations and do their constitutional duty. The Massachusetts senator wrote in a series of tweets, that means the House should initiate impeachment proceedings against the President of the United States. Mueller's report released Thursday identified at least 10 instances of potential obstruction of justice by the President, including discouraging others from cooperating with the Russia probe and dangling possible pardons. I find this interesting that this is coming from a woman who claims to be Native American but doesn't have any sort of DNA in her blood, and she used that to get ahead. What what she's accusing them of here of obstruction. The idea that the Mueller report states that there was no obstruction, no collusion. So what exactly are you going to impeach him for?
I've always said that if the Democrats try to go for to impeach Trump, that it would be a terrible, terrible mistake. It would cost them politically, and that's why Nancy Pelosi is not for it because she knows. First of all, the Mueller report showed there was no obstruction. Second of all, if they do go for impeachment, it's likely not going to pass. I mean, we saw what happened with Clinton when they tried to impeach him. You know, the Republicans got blamed for it. So the Democrats, if they try to impeach Trump and it fails, it will give him a much greater boost for his reelection campaign. Uh, Elizabeth Warren, she has, I think it's just her trying, because she's running for president. So she's just trying to, get the base energized to support her. She can say, yeah, I'm so against Trump. I would want him to get impeached. Vote for me so I can be the nominee of the Democratic Party. So I think it's just her trying to galvanize the base, try to stir up some support because she probably seeing that you know the the you know the the primary is getting crowded. She's not the favorite as she thought she was, with Bernie getting it and with all the others in it, like Beto and all that. So yeah, I think it's just all political talk because Nancy Pelosi put the hammer down. It's like there's going to be no impeachment. It's not going to benefit Democrats at all. Not at all. It will be a devastating mistake. I mean, the Mueller report, them like pinning their hopes into the Mueller report was a big mistake. I mean, I don't get what's the DNC's thought process of just hoping that Mueller will find something to convict Trump, that it would force the Republicans to turn against him so that they can impeach him. I mean, I don't get it, and it's just going to energize his base because Trump will just basically say, "See, the media and the Democrats
Hmm.
are trying to say your vote is illegitimate. They're trying to say Russia hacked it, so your votes don't even matter. They would want to impeach me. So basically, it will be a coup against not only me but against you. You know how it is. How Trump would spin it, and even though Trump is an idiot, when it comes to like galvanizing his base, he's really good at it. So
Well, they said that Trump called Putin boss. So that was supposed to be the collusion.
and also the one thing they always talk about, like they say, well, there's collusion, was that Russian agent that was at Trump Tower that was talking to, Donald Trump's sons, saying that we have information that can, hurt Hillary Clinton. But then come to find out, Trump basically said no to that. And second of all, I think that Russian agent they were talking about was not really a Russian agent. So it was like that story about, oh, the meeting at Trump Tower, that's where the collusion went down. Never really. It came about. Nothing came from it. So I don't know. I think this whole Russian collusion thing has ran its course. They've done polls on it. The average American doesn't give a fuck. Doesn't give a shit about it. They care about the economy. They care about that. Wages have stagnated. Yes, the stock market is going up, but the average American, the middle class is shrinking year by year. Um, you guys talk about it every Friday. There's a recession, a major recession coming. So that's what the American people care about: the economy, their livelihood. They don't give a fuck about this Russian collusion shit. So the Democrats pinning their hopes and dreams on it has been a terrible mistake, and I believe it will cost them in 2020, barring if there's no recession.
Hmm.
Because if there's a recession, then it's going to be a bit harder for Trump to get reelected.
Well, I mean, right now they're playing, survivor right now in terms of the Democratic, the Democratic Party, where you have all these people on one island, and they're trying to determine who's going to survive on that island. I don't see them taking Trump out personally. That's just me. I think this solidifies his position going into 2020, and there's nothing that Elizabeth Warren can do about it. He calls her Pocahontas, and he gets away with it. But I mean, and that tells you the clout that she has. She doesn't really have any clout, um, so she doesn't stand a chance, anyways. At least not against somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, right? Um,
Exactly, because a lot of progressives support Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, there's a few progressives that support Elizabeth Warren, and then you have Bernie Sanders. So so you see that the field is getting crowded, for Elizabeth Warren. That's why last week she said that if she's elected president, she'll make sure that all student loan debts will be wiped off. It'll be kind of like a debt jubilee type of thing that she would do that basically to galvanize the base. So her saying all these things, last week was about the student debt. This week about impeaching Trump. She sees that no one is saying that in the field. I'm in the inside the primary. So she wants to get ahead of the curve and be like, well, I'm so progressive. I'm so left wing that I we should impeach Trump just to get support. But I don't think it's going to work. She's a very weak candidate. Her and Kamala Harris, like they're all like this field of Democrats is very, very weak. To be honest, I don't see any of them that can defeat Trump. Kamala Harris, she has a lot of baggage. Also, black people are not going to vote for her that much. Um, who else? Cory Booker. This guy. What more can I say about him? Beto. Beto couldn't even win a Senate race in Texas. He's not gonna last. Joe Biden has that Me Too shit going on with him. Uh, there's too much baggage with this Democratic field, and it's fairly weak. And Trump is, barring a recession, Trump will get a pretty easy win for his second term.
Um, let me get to this next article so we can kind of move on. This is the last one on the docket. This one is from the New York Times. Sri Lanka calls bombers well educated and warns of ongoing threat. 9 suicide bombers from mostly educated middle class backgrounds carried out the attacks in Sri Lanka that killed more than 350 people on Easter Sunday, the authorities said on Wednesday, as they warned of ongoing terrorist threat and continued making arrests. The bombers, one of whom was a woman, were all Sri Lankan, officials said. But the authorities were continuing to investigate whether the Islamic State, which on Tuesday claimed responsibility for the coordinated blast, have provided more than symbolic support, such as by training the attackers or building the bombs. Eight bombs, 8 bombers struck at hotels and churches across the island on Easter Sunday during a subsequent police raid near Colombo, Sri Lanka's capital. A female suspect also blew herself up in front of 2 of her children, killing them all, along with several police officers, investigators said. The authorities said the number of people arrested had risen to 60 and that other individuals involved in the attacks remained at large as the FBI arrived to assist in the investigation. The American ambassador, Elena Teplitz, said there were to be believed to be ongoing terrorist plots, and Sri Lanka's state minister of defense said the danger had not passed. So basically, this is still ongoing, but we know that ISIS has been funded by Riyadh in Syria, in that they have made their way um, into Afghanistan and into the Philippines as well. As we saw, Duterte has been battling same insurgency there. Now they're in Sri Lanka. Any comments on this?
Well, the ISIS had a lot of foreign fighters flock into it. I'm at the peak of the Islamic State back in like 2016, 2015. I think Turkey was allowing like like thousands of foreign fighters to enter Syria, but by the daily. You had foreign fighters from Chechnya,
Mm-hmm.
who, which is one of the reasons why Russia got involved. You also had those Chinese Muslims who went who went to Syria to get some experience. Hence why China is going create, well, according to the media, they're saying China is creating these re-education camps. But if you understand the Chinese mentality, they prefer security over, freedom, that sort of thing. So they're clamping down on them because those fighters are coming back. A lot of fighters are going back to Europe, and now what we're seeing, there was a whole bunch of like East Asian, I mean Southeast Asian fighters who are going back home, and they're coming back with a lot of experience. They're battle hardened. Uh, they have a lot of know-how. I mean, this attack was was well thought out, well planned, and it shows that their time in Syria and Iraq, they've learned a lot. So this issue with ISIS is not going to go away. Well, what we're seeing now is the next phase is returning ISIS fighters are going to form insurgencies in these countries, as we saw in the Philippines last year when they took over that city in the Philippines. Um, a lot of ISIS fighters are going back to Egypt, well, in the Sinai Peninsula. You're also seeing ISIS fighters going to Africa too, which is another source of worry, around the Sahel region. So this is a major problem that's not going to go away. And another thing too is this happened this week. ISIS guerrilla fighters, well, terrorists, terrorists actually launched a nationwide attack in Syria. They killed like 35 regime fighters all throughout Syria this past week. So ISIS has not been defeated. They've just gone underground and they're just abiding their time. So Trump saying that ISIS has been thoroughly defeated is a lot of wishful thinking. Defeating these type of insurgencies are very difficult, as what we talked about earlier, Michael. That the U.S. is forced to withdraw because they can never really win a real war.
Mm-hmm. DE, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah. I'm looking at this in another direction. Um, I don't know if you guys remember Kenya, the attack in Kenya.
Oh, Al Shabaab.
Yeah, ISIS or ISIL, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's after China started building up Kenya. When Duterte came into office in Philippines, his trip to China, I mean, got Obama and everybody upset. Next thing you know, a civil war started in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. Because he also threatened to kick the United States out of the Philippines, and he said in a press conference with Beijing that I denounce my relationship with the United States of America. That was a very powerful moment, not just not just for him, but geopolitically speaking, to denounce the relationship going forward with the United States. That made them very on edge.
Yeah. That's 200 years of history to the United States and Philippines.
Right.
Anyway, the next now we hear in Columbus, um, the Chinese built a naval base in that place. You know that.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering what the cause. Nobody's saying why they did it.
Oh, they bought the ports in Sri Lanka. I know what you're talking about. They bought the ports. Sri Lanka could not afford to pay the debt back, and they gave up the ports to China.
Well, they didn't give it up. It's like a lease. The money that they
It's,
got
it's,
now is considered like a lease payment,
it's a 99-year lease.
right? And they're running the port. So um, that's right next to India. That's India. That's like Venezuela comes where Venezuela is to the U.S.
It's their backyard.
Exactly, and and these things. None of this is isolation. None of this is isolation. The news might try to might point you in that direction, but it's not. This is
It's
an isolated thing.
right because it's to no strategic advantage to blow up a bunch of churches, right? If you're gonna blow something up, you're gonna blow up the ports, or you're gonna hit, an embassy or something like that.
Right?
I don't see the strategic value in taking down a church. What does the church really provide you? And plus, how are they able to arrest all these people so fast? Unless you already had profiles of these people from your intelligence services. But if that's the case, where was the intelligence on the whereabouts of these people?
See, that's what I'm thinking, man. See, DE and like you guys getting two points that had me think because this whole attack makes no sense. But what the media is saying with ISIS is, I'm just like Sri Lanka, like really, like this don't make any sense, you know. So now you're saying that China bought had the lease for 99 years for that port, and that right there got my brain racking. Like, okay, there's something else here that they're not reporting. That doesn't make any sense. That they're not showing.
Hmm.
So, um, but what is the significance of China buying that port? Why would that bother India and or any other groups? Like, I'm trying to figure out why would that bother them?
The
Because
Belt and
because
Road.
yeah, the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, that's right up, that's right in India's backyard, and India does not favor China all that much, from politically speaking, geopolitically speaking, and anything to disrupt, the BRI, um, would be a victory for them. Now, they haven't reported this, but India has their own Belt and Road Initiative that they're trying to work on. Um, Even in Africa, they have very strong connections with Kenya. Very strategic in Africa as well. They have at least $10.5 billion invested into Africa as we speak. So, is it 10.5 billion? Yeah, I think it's less than $10 billion invested into Africa. So they're working on their own Belt and Road Initiative with Japan, um, being a partner. So they're trying to strengthen up their economic portfolio as well, in the same way that China is. The only difference is that they're not as advanced as China is, in terms of manufacturing and so on and so forth. They still have a lot of they still have a long way to go in to catch up with China. I would say that China is um, probably about 20 years ahead of India. So India is playing catch up, and that's why the United States under Obama wanted to open up their technology portfolio to India to help them catch up. However, Trump came in and said, if you buy the S-400 missile system from Russia, then all bets off the table. Well, you can't determine what the Indian military decides to buy, for tooling purposes, for in terms of their military portfolio, when in reality, um, you're not selling them anything either. You're not selling them the Patriot missile battery. I just
Yeah,
think that there's some really questionable ideas and moves that are being made in regards to how they see the Central Asian and Southeast Asia. It's very questionable.
India has always bought Russian weapons
Hmm.
since independence. The Russians and them had a real close connection politically.
Hmm. You were gonna say something, Jay Charles?
Yeah, just as far as India, 'cause I know India has that emerging economy. They're strengthening by the day. So you know, I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy because I'm thinking like what comes to my mind is a lot of people, a lot of these countries out there in the east are going to be warring over. It's like they're warring over this. uh, viable locations in Africa, man. Like it's like I think a war is brewing over there. Uh, just with this happening, it's like, what's next? What else is gonna happen? Because somebody's gonna retaliate, man. You know,
Well, so if that's going to be the case, then how would Sri Lanka actually retaliate? Because they put out a press release that they want international help on this. Who is the international help that they're requiring help from?
China.
Could be a variety. Could be America.
Now, hmm, damn, it's deep. Now I think on things in terms of like, okay, as far as the
Could be the
U.S.
Russia.
agenda, right? But they can be. That's a great location, right? That's like China's backyard. So does the U.S. have any ports there already in Sri Lanka, or
DE probably knows more about that.
No, the U.S. don't have a port there, but the U.S. don't really have to have a port there because they got India on that side. You know what I'm saying? India is like their backstop against China.
yeah, you're right.
Understand? That's the way the U.S. does things. Sri Lanka used to be a British colony,
Mhm.
just like India used to be a British colony.
Mhm.
So whatever is left over from British colonies, America scooped up or they can call the British and say, hey, we need something done in Sri Lanka. You are our man in Sri Lanka, get it done.
Mhm.
That's the way America does stuff.
Mhm.
If it's something to do in Africa and was a French protectorate, as the French call them, then they call France, and France will say, well, okay, we get it done.
Mhm.
So Sri Lanka, in this case, broke away from the British kind of and the Indians and went with the Chinese because that's how they're going to get developed. That's the fastest way of getting their development done. Just like how Africa went with the Chinese because nobody else was doing anything to develop Africa. And the Chinese says, "Here's the money. We'll come in and we'll build the infrastructure. We'll help you operate it. And 10, 15 years down the road, you guys are going to take it over."
Mhm.
You know, and suddenly everybody is upset because that's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen that way. You didn't get our permission to do it.
Right.
So that's the problem Sri Lanka has got. And now, with China moving in to run the port, suppose China bring his military craft in there. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
They don't have they can't sail in the Atlantic, but their ships are big enough that they can sail around to Sri Lanka, and they still, they can make port call in Sri Lanka.
Mhm.
And as time passes, now they got Djibouti. So now the chain is the pearls, as the Chinese call it, is like stretching across the Indian Ocean into Africa. And now they got the port of Kenya. So down the coast of Africa. I don't know if you guys study history, but that's what the Portuguese did. The Portuguese started up and they built forts all around the coast of Africa.
Yep.
China's doing the same thing.
So what do you
Oh,
think? What do you think the significance of that's going to be once they
the
do
Belt
that?
and Road Belt. That's money.
That's
They
mercantile.
eventually China is going to send not half their population, but a significant portion of their population is like China operating in Jamaica.
Mhm.
China operating in Barbados, China operating in Guyana, China operating. You
Trinidad.
see, one day there's no Chinese there, and the next day you see there's Chinese there. You know what I'm saying? And now, if they got a port that you can bring your ships into, like say the U.S. Diego Garcia, Philippines. You know what I'm saying? Um, if China can do that, they don't have to have a fifth fleet, sixth fleet. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to have this huge aircraft carrier with 30 or 40 other battleships and other support vessels around it, submarines and all that, right? They got ports that they can station their vessels in there, and they can patrol, 1,000 miles left or right out to sea, and it's
You know what?
connected
But
all these ports like a chain. China is not going the American route, like we said. They use battle groups because it will cost too much money very quickly that they don't want to spend. But Belt and Road is much easier because they bring in money while they're spending it. They're still bringing money in.
I just look at what China is doing, man, and just in terms of strategic planning and the plans they're executing and their goals, man. Like it's brilliant, man. Like that's brilliant. Like it makes sense to do that, and I think what's going on right now is that a lot of other countries are just upset. They're kind of yellow about that. They're jealous about what they're doing because they can't do anything. So I wouldn't be surprised if more like attacks like this happen. Just maybe to set off China or something, or set off these other countries to kick out China. But the more things like this happen, the more it reflects on them, and it makes them look more bad. So uh, it looks like China's gonna prevail. From my thoughts, China's gonna prevail at the end of all this. But is this a tragedy to see what happened in Sri Lanka? That's horrible, man. That's crazy. And then you talking about all these people got arrested. I didn't know all these people got arrested. It's like, okay, they knew something was gonna happen and they didn't do anything. So who are these people? Blood? Who are they? The blood of these people? Whose hands are they on? If you already knew that they're gonna do that, or they're up to something, you didn't stop it. The blood is on your hands, right? So uh, this is terrible, man. It's terrible.
Hey Charles,
Yeah.
false flag is nothing new. False flag is a Roman strategy.
Hmm.
A Roman strategy. 2,000 years old.
Hmm.
And guess what? The British built on Roman, French built on Rome, Spanish built on Rome, German built on Rome, US built on Rome. Even the Roman language on a dollar, a $1 bill.
Hmm.
The whole
That's
system is built on Roman strategy.
hmm, know that.
I mean, you see false flags happening in the manosphere right now. You know, it's a true story.
Facts, man. We born in America, live in America all your life. What kind of education you think you have?
Prussian.
Exactly. Roman system.
Uh, Go ahead.
Are we still freestyling right now? We're freestyling, right?
Yeah, we're gonna freestyle for another 5 minutes and then we'll close it out.
All right, just real quick, quick synopsis of your thoughts on the whole Brexit deal, man. Because uh, are they gonna do a second referendum? Because they're not coming to a deal. They're not coming up with a deal. So what do you think is gonna play out, man? Right now,
And repeat that question one more time because
like
you kind of broke up.
regarding the Brexit situation, like how do you
Okay.
think it's gonna play out? Because they're not coming up with a deal. So
Uh,
what's gonna happen?
I thought they offered them an extension to June 30th.
Yeah, but what do you think is gonna happen after the extension? Because they are they going to do a second referendum or after that, or you think they're going to just go ahead along with the deal because they're not coming up with any deals right now, like as far as who are going to
There's no
get paid.
time for there's no time for another referendum. I mean, Like they have until the June 30th. Like for a referendum, that takes like a year to prepare. So they need to come up with a deal as soon as possible. I mean, from what I think is going to happen, it's probably going to be no deal Brexit, no deal, which would be catastrophic for Great Britain. But I won't shed no tears for the United Kingdom for all their crimes they did to Africa. So this is like payback. So whatever.
Well, they're gonna get rid of all the Caribbean people through the Windrush
Yeah,
propaganda.
true. That's very true. But I just feel like this whole Brexit thing, uh, the British folk that are very anti-European Union haven't realized how dependent their economy is on the European Union, and they talk about, well, we could trade with the United States, we could trade with China, we could trade with India, whatever, blah blah. But those economies are not going to make up for what they will lose from leaving the European Union. I think a no deal Brexit is going to be bad for both sides, be bad for the European Union, because I don't think they're going to last. But is it going to be equally devastating for Great Britain? Because uh, they have they made some preparations for no deal Brexit, and but it will probably be very ugly in the long run. It's like they voted to, okay, you want to get out of the European, then what? European Union, then what? So
Go back to their own currency.
yeah, pound sterling. But they always been using pound sterling. They never really use euros though.
Yeah, but a lot of commodities are pegged to the euro.
True. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, yeah.
You
But
can use euro or pound in England.
Hmm.
But look, as far as Brexit, you got to look at what's going to happen to Italy now, and Poland, and Hungary, um,
They sure is hungry.
and Germany is kind of like questioning American leadership. I don't know if it is just a show or if it is reality, but that's the way it appears.
well, I think the next recession will be the knockout blow to the European Union because Europe never recovered from the recession from 2008. The debt crisis is still an ongoing thing. Italy has so much debt. I mean, that's why they turn to China because they see that sticking with these austerity measures by Germany is not helping them in the long run. You see the same thing with Greece as well. You're probably going to see Spain as well. You're going to see more and more countries. Just like you said, DE, just get away from the European Union because it's not effective. It's bloated. It's um, a lot of debt and what have you. So this next recession will probably be it. Like the European Union is on life support. This next recession will be like a sledgehammer to the chest.
You have to keep in mind that the European Union was designed to colonize the Europeans itself. So it's not meant to be a functional democratic institution. It's actually not. It's actually non-democratic. The people you see in there are not elected.
Yep.
So that's a part of
Yeah.
the issue.
It was just to create an economy and keep them from fighting each other long enough for people to get rich. That's about it.
Hmm.
But it's failing, and once the European Union fall, Europe will go back to the way it was before. I mean, that's why you see Germany looking towards Russia because they have no choice. Uh, they want a secure eastern border, even though Poland is right next to Germany, but they want uh, that what's that pipeline called, Mike? That
Nord Stream.
uh, yeah, no, Nord Stream. They want a source of you know uh, of energy for Germany, but also they look at history. They know that the European North Plains is flat terrain, and they don't want to have fight another war with Russia. So that's what they're looking towards Russia. France has internal issues that it's going to get even worse because Macron seems to be like a modern day King Louis the 15th, who you know very elitist, doesn't care about the poor in France, and on top of that, the middle class. You have Hungary, you have Poland, again, countries who are very being sanctioned by the European Union. So that there's so much tension going on, and on top of that, the debt crisis. I do not see this experiment lasting the next 5 years. Like if the European Union is still around in 6 years, I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised because there's so much cracks that we're seeing, and these upcoming European Union elections, which many people are say that these far right groups are slanted to win, that would change everything. So Europe is just going to go back to the way things were before, and they were destined to be. It was never going to last this long. So.
Yeah.
It looks like Europe's going to break up into 3 different groups, and maybe Russia might lead one, Germany another, and if the French survive, they probably lead another one, the weak states.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button as you exit out. Share the video if possible, and we'll be back on Friday for our economics. And Saturday we do have an IT Spring Summit for the first of 2019. So we'll be covering information technology, news, as well as certifications, emerging technology, areas of new career paths, open mic, and some mentorship as well. So make sure you tune in for that on Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Peace.